Welcome to Audio Gyan with Kedar Nimkar, a podcast that documents insightful conversations with Indian designers, artists, musicians, writers, thinkers and creatives of all types. Catch us on iTunes or visit audiogyan.com for more Gyan sessions. Here's your host Kedar Nimkar.
Welcome to a brand new episode of Audio Gyan Case Studies. Today I have Deshna Mehta with us, a visual artist with passion for photography, writing and curation. She is also co-founder of Studio Anugraha, a design and publishing platform that encourages collaborative practices deriving from and contributing to elusive aspects of culture, philosophy and ideas in general. It is based in Mumbai, and this Audiogan session tries to document the process of documentation done for the Maha Kumbh Mela by Studio Anugraha and Madhur Group. Thank you, Deshna, for giving your time, and it's a real pleasure to have you on Audiogan.
Thanks, Kedar. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So just before we begin, to give listeners a quick background about the Kumbh Mela Experience project, I've just taken a small excerpt from your website. So, Being in It and Being Off It is a contemporary visual handbook documenting experiences and conversation from one of the largest faith gatherings on earth, the Kumbh Mela of Allahabad in 2013. The anthology of writings within this compilation has been segregated based on 8 underlying themes that appear consistently throughout the experience or at the Kumbh Mela. These translate into 8 individual volumes, each of which corresponds to a theme. So after looking at the volume of work you have documented, I don't know how do we and where do we begin. So I've just come up with few questions, and so today we are here to discuss what went behind the scenes while documenting this and much more about the Maha Kumbh Mela. So Deshna, first thing which I want to ask you is what is Kumbh Mela? If you can set the background by setting this.
Sure.
Yeah.
The Maha Kumbh happens only once in 144 years.
Okay.
And the Kumbh Mela of 2001 was the Maha Kumbh.
Okay.
So actually the 2013 Kumbh is not the Maha Kumbh. It's just the Kumbh. It's a Purna Kumbh. It's not a Maha Kumbh.
Okay.
And now what is upcoming in Allahabad is an Ardha Kumbh. So the Kumbh Mela is a faith gathering which is rooted in Hinduism. The Kumbh Mela happens in 4 places, and there is a mythological story behind why in these 4 places. So in a sort of short version, and one version of the mythological story is that there was the churning of the ocean, and gods and demons got together to churn this ocean, and they wanted nectar, which was the intent of churning the ocean, because on consuming this nectar that would emerge from the churning, they would become immortal. So after the ocean was churned, there was a fight between the gods and the demons to sort of acquire this pot of nectar that emerged. And Jayant, who's Lord Indra's son, he managed to get this pot of nectar, and he flew from the site of the churning in order to protect it from the demons. Okay. And it was during this flight that it is said that 4 drops of water as in nectar, fell in 4 places, which is where the Kumbh is celebrated. So the Kumbh Mela happens in Allahabad, in Nasik, in Ujjain and in Haridwar. And this is, when does it happen, is based on planetary alignments which could collude, where you have the sun, the moon, the Jupiter, essentially these 3 planets, they acquire a certain alignment, and this causes development of a certain energy field. And this reoccurrence of this happens at a certain prescribed time, which is determined in the Panchanga or the Hindu calendars, which corresponds to the time when this happened actually in the myth. So that's how you determine the time and place of when the Kumbh happens. Why the Kumbh happens is, and what really happens at the Kumbh, to be honest, one has to just go and experience. It's hard to define in the confines of words, but typically in the Kumbh, the water body is the center. So the rivers are worshipped. And aside of that, all sorts of ideologies of Hinduism, be it the Vedas, the Puranas, the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, all of it is sort of expounded by different gurus who congregate in this gathering. And the base of it is the traditional akhadas that we have in Hinduism, which have 7 Shaiv akharas, 3 Vaishnav akharas, and 3 Udasin akharas. So these 13 form the base of the Kumbh gatherings. So it's all their sort of saints who come together and inhabit this landscape for the duration of the Kumbh. And the most important thing here is that it is one time and one place where all of it comes together. So it's like you go to a shopping mall where you have everything under one roof. So it's like a philosophy mall, if I may say that, where all these ideologies, philosophies, teachings come together in one time and place under one roof. And for a visitor, it's like a platter. You go, walk into one, absorb, go into another and absorb. Yeah, that's what the Kumbh is.
Wow. In fact, it's so much to comprehend in just one. What is Kumbh Mela, in fact? So yeah, what made you document the Kumbh Mela? I mean, how many have you documented this far, and how much have you documented? Can you give a brief background about that as well?
So the Kumbh documentation for me started actually with a commission. So this was back in 2012, the end of 2012, where I was studying in London and I moved back to India. I finished my master's, and I had a client approach me who said, why don't you document the Kumbh? So that's how it all started. Actually, if I trace it a little prior to that, while I was studying in London at the London College of Communication in 2009 and 2010, my dissertation compared the cultural landscapes of the Ganga in Varanasi and the Thames in London. So I had this sort of affinity towards rivers, and I did this culture study around these two rivers, and it took the form of 5 books. So when I came back, I happened to share this with my to-be patron, who I didn't know then was my to-be patron. And he looked at these and he just said very casually, why don't you document the Kumbh? And at that point, I was still figuring whether I should work for someone, freelance, set my own practice. And then when this commission came about, it felt like it was a good time already to start, because documenting the Kumbh, from what I had heard and seen, was not going to be a small task. So because he invested in me and he gave me a free hand to collaborate, and this is not something you can do as an individual. So I knew that it had to be a team, but he gave me all the freedom to get the team together and take on the project. So it came as a commission. And also what was interesting is my first reaction when he said is document the Kumbh. I said, yeah, great, for a photographer, it's going to be quite amazing. But I also was skeptical. I thought that, who would willingly go into a stampede? That was my first thought. And his reaction to that was that you are my target audience. I want you to document the Kumbh because this is exactly the perception that I want to change. So in that sense, from that one conversation, we got the intention, we got the brief. We got the, reason why we had to do this. And he said, you have to do it. You have to go experience the Kumbh for yourself, and then the documentation will emerge. So that's how it all began. And we started with the Allahabad Kumbh in 2013. We went on to document Nasik and Trambakeshwar in 2015 and Ujjain in 2016. So at the moment, what is published is 8 volumes on the Allahabad Kumbh and an hour-long documentary. We are ready with our documentary on Nasik, and it's culminated into 4 volumes on the Nasik Kumbh, and Ujjain is sort of underway. It's in progress. So, yeah.
If you keep documenting, it's an endless journey, I believe.
Yeah, we want to complete, ideally we should finish the 4 landscapes, because like I said, it happens in 4 places. So far we've documented 3. And we'd also like to do Haridwar in 21, God willing. I don't know.
So your practice in design practice with a focus on communication design, right? So then where does this content and documentation feature in the realm of things?
So I'm going to go back to the Kumbh, because since we're focusing on that as a case study here, I've always been interested in writing and reading. And from the way we were trained when I was studying at the Royal College of Art and at the London College of Communication, we were asked to most of the time make our own briefs. So we were given tools and techniques. We were exposed to a lot. But the subject that one has to work with had to be one's own subject. So that sort of gave me a a large canvas to think about, because it made me think about my likes, dislikes, interests, passions, what I found problematic, what I was inspired by. And that led to sort of thinking, why do I do what I do? Not just how do I do what I do, or this is what I can do. So because you have to answer the why, all the time it goes back to this question to yourself, that you do something that you relate to or you find meaning in. Because especially when you make your own briefs, you'd either make a brief with a subject that you love or a subject that you find problematic, because then you want to solve that. So that was inculcated, I would say, in my time in London for 4.5 years that I was there. And then it translated into my studio practice, where at some point in 2011 and 12, I figured that for me, satisfaction as a designer was to sort of work for causes rather than for tangible products. So my practice at Anugrah at the moment is focused on working for the social, cultural, educational, environmental sectors. And we do not really work with luxury brands or consumer products. So it's all sort of interconnected to a way of thinking that was the seeds of which were sown to find meaning, to find your own self, and to find your own voice while I was studying. So content, coming to what you asked me about content and communication. So content becomes integral because, like I said, one way is you commission a designer, you say, here's all the content, here's, I want a book. So you generate the visual, you design the content in a certain way, and you produce a book. The other way to do it is that you make the content for the book itself. So as someone who's interested in photography, in interview, in people, in anthropology, in philosophy, for me it was always a passion space to go and speak to people and understand landscapes, and to find solutions from people rather than find solutions from the internet. So because of this, this as a backdrop, as a base, led to a practice. And we were very fortunate to be commissioned to do the Kumbh, because that is one landscape that demands this all the more. And also when we were commissioned to document the Kumbh, we realized that we are no historians or scholars. Neither have we gone to the Kumbh ever. So, who are we to make books on the Kumbh? So how do you do this project? So that was the first question that I had to ask myself and a few collaborators. And we all said that we'll sort of deploy or employ an oral history approach, where everything that is part of the book or the film is sort of derived from people who are experiencing the Kumbh in real time. And there is validity in speaking to them, because the people chosen, or the people we serendipitously sort of even came across, were people who were participants in the landscape and played significant roles. So, for example, for such a big gathering where there were more than 80 million people, traffic, security, all of that has to be in place. So when we got to interview Mr. Kavindra Pratap Singh, who was heading the security and traffic control, he obviously knew what he was doing for a year in, making strategies for crowd management and everything from training police and ground staff, even in how to talk, because people have come with a sentiment of faith. So we had really insightful conversations with people who were insiders to the system, and those form the content. So we could only make the books because of them. So as designers, we see our role as facilitators, not as creators. So even for the Kumbh books, we call ourselves editors and collators, not authors, because the authors are the people who form the landscape.
Beautiful, beautiful. In fact, I would like to tell our listeners that this is a complete different insight which I'm deriving right now, because me and Deshna had connected probably a year back to interview something and document something more on collaboration. But then as and when I was following our work, and now this is the manifestation of the current things. It's brilliant to know so many insights about the Kumbh. So Deshna, what were the like deliverables, if you can describe them a bit little, and why did you name being in it and being of it, along with the 8 names for each volume which you have, and also like why 8 volumes, if you can give like a brief background about it also.
So the deliverables for the Allahabad Kumbh that we documented in 2013 are 8 volumes. They are 8 books, each of which is about A3-ish in size. It is a hardbound volume, and the whole set spans about 1600 pages and about 55,000 words. It's an equal balance of text and images. It's a combination.
Okay.
It's
A3 size. I was not aware.
Yes, it's slightly smaller than A3, but yeah, it's close to that. So your question about why 8 books and why did we name them what we named them? So this was prior to us going into the Kumbh landscape. We were about 3-4 of us sitting around a table, and these were people who were my friends, or maximum friends of friends, or maximum friends of friends of friends, because that's how my collaborators emerged for this project. And because I've had an education in design for the last 8 years and been in an academic space, right from my JJ days to London and a little bit of teaching at NID, all my networks tend to be designers, filmmakers. So that in itself was a blessing, because when I had to undertake this project, it was very easy to reach out to people. So when we were brainstorming and figuring how will we document, the route that emerged was experiential at the Allahabad Kumbh. So we said that everything that we get into the book has to be from somebody experiencing that particular Kumbh in real time. So I'm not going to look at another book on the Kumbh and derive secondary research and put that into my book.
Okay.
So the whole book set is formed with primary research, which means the bibliography is only voice recordings, audio recordings, video recordings. The entire bibliography is primary research. So because we said experience is the base or the approach to sort of go document, in a casual conversation, one of my colleagues and friends, Jazreel, mentioned these words, being in it and being of it, and she was also making a reference to something in the Bible at the time. And those words just stuck with me, because I realized that we were walking into a landscape where we would at some point be immersed. We were in it. But as people documenting, you have to be off it, because you're at a distance. The minute you see from a camera, you're not in the moment. You're seeing that moment through the camera. So that's just how, those words just rang in our ears, and we said, yeah, this is it. And we didn't decide that this is the name of the book. We just said, okay, experience and being in it and being of it. We'll cling to these 2 phrases, words, and we'll go. And then we slept over it after we came back, and it took a 1.5 years to collate everything and publish. But we could just resonate with the words. So we said, yeah, this is something that is a natural title for the books. So the set is called Being in It and Being of It, but each book has a name.
Separate name. Yeah.
So now, how do these names emerge? So we had about 80 odd conversations in Allahabad with different people from different walks of life experiencing the Kumbh that form the content of the books. So it was right from acharyas and Mahamandleshwars and adhikaris of different akhadas, to saints, to government officials like health and sanitation officer, security and traffic control officer, Mela adhikari, all the people who put the logistics in place, to some academics at Allahabad University who've been documenting the Kumbh for many years because they're locals, but they also have an academic eye. So like head of anthropology, head of ancient history. So they're looking at the Kumbh from a faith space, but also from a very lens of anthropology or a lens of history. So we were fortunate to be able to speak to all of these people. Now, when we raised questions on field, every person obviously had their own experience of the Kumbh, but they spoke of several aspects. So, for example, if I'm talking to you and say you're a pilgrim, you might tell me, the faith you follow within Hinduism. You might tell me what you feel about the river. You might tell me what you feel about the management of the Kumbh. So in your interview itself, I have like 10 tags. If I tag your interview,
Correct.
that river is one tag, management is one tag, faith is one tag, belief is one tag. So like this, we tagged all the 80 conversations that we had.
So this 80 was from this 18 million people?
Yeah.
Okay.
But these 80 were essentially people who were
Represent
playing a
particular-
role
Hmm.
in the Kumbh. So like I said, for example, an acharya in an akhada is the highest position in an akhada of a spiritual head.
Okay.
So if you speak to him, it's like you get the essence of the whole belief system in an akhada that may have 5 lakh sadhus.
Mhm.
So we had the opportunity to connect with a lot of these kind of people. So all extremes, right from speaking to Mark Tully, who's part of our documentation, and because he's at the Kumbh, he's been to the Kumbh several times, to even a pilgrim who can barely speak a language we understand. Because we as collators felt that nothing is more important or less important. Somebody's faith of even a one line is probably even more important than the most famous person.
Correct.
So we've not eliminated anyone we came across. So all the people we spoke to are in the book. But we were also fortunate to speak to people who played significant roles. So going back to tagging of interviews, and the reason I'm saying this is because that forms the names of the books, that we tagged all these 80 conversations and we came up with almost a list of 150 total tags
Okay.
at the Kumbh. Now we started grouping them. So for example, everything with river, ritual, aarti sort of went in one group. Everything about, say, belief systems, all the scriptures went in another sort of larger tag. And we went on and on tagging, and the grouping of these tags, we realized that there were about 25 larger heads that emerged. And we grouped them further, and then at some point we thought that the Kumbh at Allahabad is most significant for the fact that the 3 rivers converge, the Sangam, which is the Ganga, Yamuna and the Saraswati, which has now sort of disappeared, but metaphorically emerges at the Kumbh in the form of knowledge, because so many gurus come. So they say that Saraswati lupt hai, lekin Kumbh ke samay mein she comes to life through all the knowledge that is expounded. So we wanted this trio to be a name of a book. We wanted Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati to definitely be a name of a book, because that is very close to, or the essence of the Allahabad Kumbh, the Sangam. So we said, okay, 3s, meaning all our books should have 3s.
Okay.
So that's how...
So that was the guiding principle for
that,
this.
yeah, it was an emergent principle. I mean, then it became a principle. It wasn't a principle, but we thought it'd be nice, because that's what makes it unique from other Kumbhs, the Sangam. And it's also the pivotal point of why the Kumbh happens, where it happens.
So
then,
this coming of 3 rivers together is just a speciality of Allahabad.
Yeah.
And in Nasik and other places,
there are different. So Nasik, Trambakeshwar is Godavari.
Okay.
Ujjain is Shipra. It's different rivers. Haridwar is again Ganga. But the Sangam of the 3 is only at Allahabad, which is also why it is the most important Kumbh and the biggest Kumbh. And it is most frequented because it's most auspicious. So we had these 3 that we said one book has to be Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati. And then we realized it also allowed us to take all our 25 heads, because if we said one book ka name is only faith, it's only one tag. But this trio allowed us 3 tags, which means we could do lesser books and more tags. So therefore, 8 books emerged from the maximum that we could simplify. Like after that, we were like, we can't group anymore. So after Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, we had place, time and astronomy. We had history, mythology, belief. We had faith and worship. And the 8th volume is basically sellers, spectacle and services. So that is a whole book which is profane. It has nothing spiritual. It's only about the logistics and the melaness of the Mela. So it also allowed, we realized that people can have entry points into the Mela depending on their own mindsets. Like say I'm an atheist and I don't really care about religion, or I have no interest in spirituality. I can only look at book 8 because that just gives me everything about the management of such a big gathering. It'll give me strategies of crowd management. It'll tell me how do you erect a pop-up mega city? What is the material used to build, a city that's only going to last for 2 months and then be underwater. It's going to tell me about all the snake charmers and the Mela-ness that is in the Mela vibe. So we said that we can cater to different audiences when we have different books directed to different subjects. And the intention of our client or our patron was that people come and experience the Kumbh. People should, our generation.
Correct.
And they don't. Not everyone does, unless you're a photographer or a visual artist or somebody who has that passion. So he said that the books have to appeal to us. Like I said, he told me I am his target audience. So we then realized that we have to cater to different people with different mindsets, because at least in my generation, I can speak for myself that I'm very fast in including, excluding, and making judgments. I know it's not a good thing, but I am. So these books, and to kind of divide them like this, really help, because it just, say I'm only interested in the myth of the Kumbh and the history. I just have to pick up volume 2. It's okay if I don't read anything else. Or if I'm somebody who's a complete faith-based person, I can just pick up volume 7, which is all about faith stories. And equally, if I'm somebody who's just interested, say, in the rituals in the river, I can pick up book 3, which is just the 3 rivers and the rituals and everything that goes around the story of the rivers. So yeah, that's how the books, and it was emergent. It wasn't like 8. We did 5, we did 8, we did 12, we did 16. Wow. And then in the process of edit, it sort of came together, consolidated itself. So it's something that you keep sleeping over, you keep on aggregating, and then you reflect, and somebody comes and comments and is like, oh, why don't you do this? So it's also the privilege of time that we had, which was something that in hindsight really worked well. Because if you have to do stuff, like at a very quick pace, you may not arrive at these decisions at all.
I can hardly imagine the kind of, just because when you give a different perspective altogether by saying that we tag these conversation, it completely contemporizes the entire thing and help us visualize what kind of work must have gone into this. So Deshna, I would like to, so since we are talking about this and I can see a lot more which needs to be documented in your entire process, I would like to break this into 2 parts. And the first part which we discuss about this, I would like to conclude that section with just asking one more question. And in the second part, then we'll focus more about the Kumbh itself and what were your learnings and stuff like that. So yeah, to conclude this section, what you also worked on making a documentary. So can you quickly tell us what was the role while doing that?
So when we were commissioned to document the Kumbh, our patrons actually only wanted a book. Actually, the brief was make a book on the Kumbh. It wasn't like make volumes. It's just that we came back with so much and it turned into volumes. But when he told us make a book on the Kumbh, we realized that our process is going to be the same. Our content is going to come from the people in the landscape.
Okay.
We're anyways going to have to voice record everything. We're anyways going to go with cameras because we want stills to make the whole book. Then we said, why not invest a little more and get moving image. So that's really a conversation we had with our patron, and I have to be honest that the filmmakers who were on board, the cinematographers, one of them is my best friend. Okay. So it was really like friends of friends of friends that formed the whole collaboration. But so we said you just have to invest a little more in a couple of people who will come and do moving image, who will come and film. And then at the end of it, for the same thing, you will also have a documentary. And the Kumbh as a medium the Kumbh as a landscape is such that it's very different when you experience it with sound and with motion. Yeah, because it can be a complete, you may not even understand one word really of what is religion or a scripture, but the vibe or the collective energy there is so powerful that you can't capture in words and in stills. It's a vibe. Yeah. So to capture that vibe and motion, it was important to have a film. So our role as a studio, so the cinematography was done by Yashodha Rao, who's Bangalore based, and another cinematographer, Sudhanva. They both solely filmed the whole thing, and she was the only person on the edit. And music was made by 2 individuals, Bindu Malini and Vedant, who are prolific singers and artists. So yeah, that's how the film emerged. But our role as a studio was to work with Yasho in the content direction. because we were working with the same body of information and the same set of sites that we visited. So every time we went to interview someone, if somebody is doing video, somebody is doing sound, somebody is doing like notes of facts, somebody is doing, where are you from? Give me your email because I need to approach you, or give me your address. Because before we publish and we put out the documentary, we would have to get consent. Because there's a whole layer of translation involved. All our conversations were in Hindi. The books are in English. And material is very philosophical also. So it was important. And because we knew we were going to be producers and publishers, we had to have the paperwork in place to have consent from all of these individuals that they are okay to be published in the way they are published. So the archiving process was systematic, but it was the same process that one had to follow for the film and the book. And we said that since we're visiting anyway all these people and these sites, may as well also invest a little and do the films. And the client agreed. So that's how the film has happened. We're actually doing the Allahabad film that we've made is something that we've done public screenings with. But with the upcoming Allahabad Kumbh, which is now less than a month away, we are doing an online release of the Allahabad film. Then it is accessible to everybody. So we'll mark the beginning of the Kumbh with the online release of the film that we made, which will be in January.
Yeah. Online release on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I think this is a good note to end this particular conversation, this particular episode, I would say. And we will continue in the second episode what went into the Kumbh. Thank you, Deshna, for giving your time, and it was good talking to you.
Likewise, thanks.
And that's it from today's Gyan session. Catch us on iTunes, Saavn, Stitcher, or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for more Gyan on audiogyan.com. Till then, bye.